Well, again, here we are, getting ready to take a look at Chapter 9, Crime, Courts, and Police Power. Once again, I want to remind you that this video is simply a guide into the chapter, and then it's your responsibility to um, take this guidance and expand that by looking very closely at the aspects of the chapter that we're going to talk about here. Uh, Someplace down the line here in your notes, if you're looking at your notes, that I've already uploaded into the lesson for week 7 for chapter 9. Take a look at the notes. There is a video about halfway through on those notes, a YouTube video regarding young people who are in divisional detention. Take a look at that. I think it's a moving video regarding youth in detention. Anyway, there's 3 kinds of law. There's probably more than that, but when I think of law, I think of it in 3 ways. There's common law, statutory law, and administrative law. Administrative law, statutory law are the easiest to understand. Statutory law is law that's made by the state assembly or your local government or a county commission. They make a law. It's voted on by a majority. Once a majority approves a law, it's put into place, and some administrative body is responsible for implementing the law. That's statutory law. It becomes a statute of our legal system. Administrative law is something close to that, but administrative law is generally created by an agency that determines what, through expertise, what the law should be. For example, if the statutory law states that the water in Lake Norris needs to be at a level pertinent to TVA requirements for generating electricity, that's a statutory law. It's kind of general. The administrative body would make, or Department of Energy would make administrative law to say exactly how high or how low the water would be, what foot level, let's say, or how many cubic feet of water would have to go through the dam per hour. Those would be details. But they carry the force of law. Details do. Common law, on the other hand, is law that's established by the court system determining the constitutionality of a statutory or administrative law. It started in Great Britain, the idea that a court of persons could be 3 judges, could be 9 judges, depending upon the court. Supreme Courts in the United States have 9 judges. State courts typically, Supreme Courts have 7. Sometimes we have circuit courts that are parts of state courts with 3 judges. They determine whether a law is constitutional. Recently, you heard a lot about the Obamacare or Healthcare Reform Act of 2010, and that was looked at and reviewed by a panel of Supreme Court justices determining whether that common law, whether that statutory law, meets the test of common law, and they found that most of that law was able to be put forward. And so any state government that creates another law similar to that, they'd look at the Supreme Court judge's determination, and that's the common law that would be guiding us rather than statutory or administrative law. All right, so now that I've thoroughly mixed you up about law, and you'll look at a book and redefine what I just said, there are many lawyers in our world today. The text says there's something like 1.1 million lawyers running around our landscape. My brother's a lawyer, and he tells me that only maybe 10% of all lawyers ever go to trial, to court. There's many, many lawyers who are investigative or organizational, or they work on mergers, or they identify different kind of components of law, but they're not really trial lawyers. So a lot of legal thinking goes into our world today, into our society, but not necessarily in front of law and in front of legal courts. One of the biggest forms of law is liability law, and that's where a person finds they feel they have enough of a case to sue someone. And the common typical case is a car accident where a person has inflicted injuries, and they sue the people who crashed into them, let's say. Or maybe another example is a person that slips on a puddle of water at Walmart, particularly if someone else or they had told the manager that there's water and they're afraid they're going to slip. And then they go ahead and slip and they break a hip or they break their leg. Well, then that company, Walmart, let's say, or Target, would be liable. Those are referred to as liability or tort, T-O-R-T, law cases. Those are the most abundant cases in our legal system. So it's not criminal cases, but tort cases or liability cases that are most abundant. And those cases cost our society a lot of money because the awards are typically very high. So take a look in the text about capping awards, joint and several, mediation. Take a look at those terms and make sure you know what they mean with regard to liability cases. Now, how are courts structured? Again, I think of it in levels. There are 3 levels of court. There are, the most common courts are the municipal courts. They're referred to as minor courts. And there are the second level. Above that are trial courts, and then above that are the appeals courts. Okay, so there's 3 levels of courts. The minor courts might be where you take a parking ticket or a speeding ticket, or sometimes if your neighbor is suing you for $100 or less because you broke her fence, let's say, or the dog got out and ate her shrubs, or your kid's basketball went through her window, she could take a case like that. Depending on the state that you're in, below a certain level of dollars, it might be 1,000, it might be 100, it might be 50, it might be 10,000. You take that to the minor courts. Trial courts are where a jury will, and by the way, the minor courts, typically one judge will sit on the bench and make a determination. A trial court has more to do with felony cases, murder, rape, theft, grand larceny. These kinds of things go to a trial court. It might be a case having a common case dealing with a land dispute, and a person feels like someone built their house on their property and shouldn't on somebody else's property and shouldn't have. They might request a trial case to have a jury of their peers hear the case and make a determination either in favor or against the person calling the case forward. But again, those would be major trial courts and cases. The Supreme Court, the highest court in the state, will hear cases on appeal. So if a case goes to a minor or trial court, it's possible that if the litigants continue to feel aggrieved, they will ask for an appeal, and the appellate judges will look at the merits of the case and decide if the case should be appealed or not. So not all cases are appealed automatically, except for one, and that's murder. In most states, if anyone is killed in some way dealing with murder, then the appellate court of the state, in all the states I'm familiar with, will require that the case be looked at by the appellate court, just to make sure everything was properly litigated. And a lot of that information is on page 296. Take a look at that. There's a discussion about the Supreme Court and the cases it sees. Again, at the highest level of land, the Supreme Court sees a lot of cases that are appealed by the lower division. The appellate case, the appeals court will see cases of economic impact, capital punishment, which is murder cases. They'll see interjurisdictional cases where one state is suing another. They'll see where 2 counties may be suing each other over a land dispute or a dispute about the bridge that nobody's wanting to pay for. Those kinds of cases will go to a Supreme Court, an appellate, and these are referred to as appeals courts or appellate courts. Take a look at the idea of judicial activism and judicial restraint in the book. An activist court is one that's where it would be claimed that judges go a little bit too far in making their opinion and reinterpreting the Constitution. A restraintive court is one that's claimed to be upholding the Constitution in a very strict and clear manner. Um, Sometimes an activist court is referred to as a liberal court because those who would make judgments in that way, in a more activist way, they like to interpret the Constitution according to today and how the world is today, whereas restraintive judges typically look back at what the founding fathers of the state or the nation felt the world was like then and interpret court cases based on those kinds of fundamentals. So take a look at that. Also, there's a discussion in the text about judges. There are some states that appoint their judges. Some states judges go through election. There's a couple of states that have what's called a Missouri plan, and there's more than just Missouri that has this. The Missouri plan is where judges are appointed by a county or state division that appoints judges, and then after a period of time, let's say 6 months or a year, they have to be elected by the population within which their jurisdiction resides. Crime, thinking about crime in the chapter here, crime crime rates are listed on page 309. Crime rates can vary. If we have very good reporting systems, then it looks like the crime rates are high. You might have a jurisdiction where it looks like there's low crime, but it really might be a function of the fact that the way we report and collect data about crime is inefficient or ineffective. So there very well might be a lot of crime, but we just don't know about it because it's not being reported or it's not being recorded in that way. About 16, the text says about 16% of all crime is implemented by youth, people who are 16 years old or younger, juvenile crime. And some folks would say that juveniles should not be responsible for crime under a certain age. Again, take a look at the YouTube video that I have listed on your chapter notes. Gives you a little bit of incentive. Don't just listen to these young people as in terms of what they're saying. Think about the kind of life they've come from, and they've had to lie, cheat, and steal basically to survive. And some would say it's not their fault. Others would say it doesn't matter whose fault it is. They did the crime. They got to pay the time. So different theories. In fact, the text talks about theories of crime: theory of justice, deterrence, rehabilitation, incapacitation. Take a look at theories of punishment. And then there are a number of theories of crime, of why crime happens. Heterogeneity, because we live in such a diverse world. White-collar crime and greed. People want more than they deserve. They don't have work for them, so they steal, they launder money, they write out checks that money don't belong to them. There's a youth theory of crime, because people are young, they don't know that the consequences of getting caught are going to really burn them for the rest of their lives. There's crime of passion. Someone comes home and finds their spouse in bed with another person and kills them. It's passion. There's crime it's claimed comes from mental illness. A person who's crazy, hates men or something, and gets a gun and starts shooting men. There are hate crimes, white persons who hate blacks, or black persons who hate Hispanics. Take a look at theories of crime. Again, the word theory means we don't know why something happens. So that's just what they are, theories. But again, theories that have a pretty good source of data with them for them to be in the text as theories. Another discussion in the text you want to be aware of is victimization. What about people who are victims of crime? It seems like they don't get much back from having a loved one killed, having their car stolen, having their house burnt down, and so on. And what about the community? Someone goes crazy on a rampage and busts out all the windows in a blocks worth of businesses downtown, and the insurance companies pay for it. We say, yeah, but where's that money come from? It comes from the taxpayer and from other people that are insured. So victimization, not just individuals, it's the town and businesses and so on. Take a look at that. Prisons, 2.2 million people in prison on any given day. That's a lot of people. 2.2 Of all industrialized nations, it's claimed the United States, has more people in prison than any other industrialized nation. $75 billion a year. It's a huge industry. It costs on the average $32,000 per inmate per year. And the recidivism rate, that is the return rate back to prison, is something like 70%. So 7 out of 10 people who do their time are going to come back to prison for another $32,000 per year. What are we doing about it? What are the reforms? One of them is education. Take a look at that in the text. Quite a bit of reform there. Evangelization, facilities, reentry programs, community programs for people who are fresh out of prison. These are all possibilities for solutions to crime and recidivism. There's something called the 85% solution. That is, that crime is perpetuated by those who should have served their time but got out early on early release, or because of some kind of a decision by the court to let them go to some facility that's for a short amount of time. Death penalty, Georgia versus Furman, 1972. Take a good look at that case. You'll see that on the test. The death penalty was determined unconstitutional for a number of years, and then it came back to be constitutional as long as the states clarified beyond a doubt what conditions upon which someone goes to jail for having murdered someone, and for what particular crimes a person could have the death penalty for having killed someone. For example, most states, if you kill a policeman or a prison guard, you're going to get the death penalty. If children are killed, someone killed during a kidnapping, someone killed during another felony offense, someone who's tortured and killed, or multiple murders. Those are typical offenses that states that have capital punishment, not all states do, that those states that have capital punishment would send someone death penalty to either the gas chamber, electric chair, or some other form, like firing squad. I think California still has firing squad. A couple of states still have hanging as a method. Okay, thank you very much. Again, I'll put another video on here shortly regarding your major test on Friday. Have a nice day.